I'm Joe Urban, CEO of Potrero Medical. And this is the first time I've given this presentation post-COVID and also post my mother-in-law's passing. So in advance, I'll ask for some grace on this. I would always start the presentation with Barb. She was my mother-in-law. Unlike most mother-in-law stereotypes, I really loved her. She was great. About 5 years ago, she was in the ICU. She suffered a stroke, and although her prognosis looked great, she was heading towards full recovery, I knew that she was in danger. There's a little known in public affliction that's called acute kidney injury, and it affects over 300,000 people as far as mortality goes. So it kills a lot of people, more than prostate, breast, and colon cancers combined. You flip a coin, if you're ever in the ICU, you flip a coin if you're going to have acute kidney injury. Why is this? There's a number of reasons why. It's manual. The way that we measure this vital sign is manual in nature. It's highly tedious and it's variable between users. We've automated this. And what this is, one of the areas that we're looking at first is CABG. And this is just an example of what and why we're looking at coronary artery bypass graft surgery. Is 31% of all CABG patients will have a post-operative AKI. This is a problem. And 1 in 5 will be readmitted. We think that this is all completely preventable. In fact, we believe that the signals that have been in the body for forever, we're just harvesting them. We're taking all of the data that's inside and we're applying machine learning algorithms, and we're applying that to get the patients out of the bed and back to life faster. This was what our clinical study that is well under its way was based on. This was Dr. Vanessa Mole. She was at Emory University, and we looked at intra-abdominal pressure, one of the signals that we pick up, urine output and temperature. And then we overlaid on top of that the hospital's blood test called serum creatinine. And you could see during the surgery, the pressures are normalized. Every single person in this room more than likely has normal intra-abdominal pressure. The urine output was okay, not great, but okay. And the creatinine was normal. That's the baseline. What we're finding in our 2,500 patient registry and the first 300 patients across multiple sites around the country is a two-step phenomena where you see an increase in intra-abdominal pressure, where it plateaus after about 3 hours, and a secondary increase where it goes beyond intra-abdominal hypertension and oftentimes abdominal compartment syndrome pressures. This is very, very bad for the patient. All of these pressures being pushed onto not just the kidneys, but every organ system in the abdomen. This is what's happening today. In this case, the serum creatinine came back from the lab downstairs, again, 1 to 2 days too late. And when the hospital realized that they had stage 2 acute kidney injury, what they did is they administered a Lasix bolus. And you could see an immediate surge in urine output. With our technology, you see it immediately. But what was even more fascinating is you see an immediate correlation and drop in intra-abdominal pressure. It gets everything focused and flowing again. And this is where we believe we can make a big impact, where we, through population data, we're able to pull this back into the very beginning where disease originates because we can see it. Our technology is in the operating room and the ICU. It's hardware, disposable, and we have digital data products. Our sensors we're putting our sensors on a traditional Foley catheter, so a dumb device that just resides in patients all over the world, and we're picking up these very unique signals that have always been there with a push of a button. Not only are we picking up urine output and the function of the kidney with complete accuracy, we're also seeing intra-abdominal pressure and core body temperature. In addition, every time the diaphragm moves up and down, we are seeing a pressure waveform in the bladder, which is the respiration waveform. We can see when the heart is beating and it sends a vibration through the bladder. And we've also put conductivity sensors in the cassette. So ionic changes in the urine from minute to minute as soon as it hits. This is very important for aggregating everything together and predicting. An example of a real-world innovation with Potrero. When COVID hit, we noticed everything was being pushed into the hall, anything that could. So the infusion pumps, everything, were out in the hall, yet the output were still inside. We launched the AccuTab in 8 weeks. Barbara McLean at Grady Hospital was the first to use it. This is an example of the diagnostics, the rich diagnostics of what she was able to do. The very first patient. So as soon as we activated the catheters, this patient, if you're under this line for 6 hours, you have stage 1 AKI. Under it for 12 hours, you're in stage 2, and 24, stage 3. This is why it was so easy for COVID patients, as an example, to slip into that death spiral where their organs cannot recover. They gave a bolus because they could see it and popped the kidney above the KDIGO line. Now I'm going to throw out some staggering numbers. This is what our machine and our disposable sensors are picking up. And you see some hand waving with AI, machine learning, deep learning. This is where you start to become exponential, and you have a tremendous amount of power to look at algorithms and go back to the origination of that disease. In a 3-day period, when our Foley goes into a patient in the operating room and starts working, what we're able to do in those 3 days that Foley's in there is measure bladder pressure 25 million times, 920,000 times, and from those 25 million measurements, we're able to calculate intra-abdominal pressure 8,640 times. When we multiply this out across all 2,500 patients, we find that we will have 65 billion bladder pressure measurements and over 22 million intra-abdominal pressure. This enables us to do very sophisticated predictive modules that will enable us to help a lot of patients around the world. We're in a huge market. We're just looking at the ICU, 5 million people in the ICU every year. 2/3 require a Foley. Every single one of those should be a smart Foley to help that patient get better. $10 billion market. We're looking at this as a 1/3, 2/3, where we have an existing market where we grow it by bringing in this sophisticated technology, and then 2/3 in software. We see this as a platform. Phase 1 is to proliferate, get the technology into the hospitals, and then after they're in the hospitals, we activate them with very intelligent predictive algorithms. Ideally producing precision in and precision outs, but putting the patient first and getting them out of the hospital. So whether it's your mother-in-law, like it was for me, or your sister, your best friend, your kid, or the person sitting next to you, there's one less thing that you have to worry about with Potrero, because we're working to get this life-saving technology into the hospitals for you. Thank you.